Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod BBQ. My name is Mike Musto, and I am here with Hemmings' own Rob Einaudi and Mike Austin. And on today's show, we are going to talk about how you, the amateur, get into motorsports. So, gentlemen, how you guys doing today?
Good.
Pretty good.
Not
Pretty
bad.
good. Y'all need a little
happy
more.
spring.
Is today the first day of spring?
It's close.
I think it was like a week ago.
What?
I'm not gonna do the Midwest weather thing. Just say like it's getting warmer, which means spirits are high.
Okay, well that is a good intro because here's the thing. Spirits are high. Springtime is either here or right around the corner. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't keep in tune with it. All I know is California's always nice. But the fact of the matter is, because springtime is here, everybody is starting to pull their cars out of the garage and get ready for this season, which leads us into motorsport, amateur sport. How you get into your car and use it for something other than driving to the supermarket, dropping your kids to school, and just tooling around on weekends. So let's talk about this, because now I've been doing kind of amateur, auto sport for the better part of 25 years, almost 30 years, which kind of dates myself, whatever. But I think a lot of people don't realize that it's much easier to get into auto sport than they might think. Right. So we've got, when you talk about things, and I know, Rob, you just did it this past weekend with an autocross.
Yep.
Austin, you've raced autocross. You've done some lemon stuff. So where should we start? Should we start with autocross? Should we start with track stuff? Where do you guys think?
I mean, autocross is a good one just because it's they're easy to find anywhere. Just Google autocross in the name of your town and you're likely to find some near you. Right. Now, autocross, for those that don't know, autocross is a very autocross is a discipline where you are in your car and you're going through a short course set up through cones, right? And at first you might say to yourself, well, what is this, like a driving test? Like you're just going through cones? Yeah. Absolutely not. Autocross not only tests your reaction time, but suspension, braking, your acumen to the car, how well you know it, reaction time, everything. And it is a ton of fun. The good part about autocross is if you want to find out about it, you can go right to scca.com because they're really the sanctioning body of autocross. And like Rob said, they probably have one in your town or your neighboring town that you can attend. Now, when it comes to the vehicles that you could run in autocross, I will sell this right now. You could pretty much run anything. Right? Anything. So if you have whatever your daily driver is, if you're driving, I mean, aside from, say, a jacked up pickup truck, I don't know, you can, believe it or not, you could run a minivan. You could run a Miata. You could run your daily. Mike?
I had a plan once to run a Leaf in autocross. You'd have to tow it there. But the idea being the cars the Leaf is classified against, a lot of, autocross is you start from a stop, you're in a parking lot. Side note, it's actually pretty safe because you're running, you're only running against the clock, and the courses are set up so that you have to screw up pretty bad if you're going to like slide off and hit a curb or something.
Yeah.
Right. You're putting some abuse into your car, but in the grand scheme of things, it's one of the safest forms of motorsports you could do. But yeah, like a Leaf, I was thinking this thing's super quick, 0 to 30. The stuff that it's classified against, if you can get it to the track with a full charge, or to the course, you could dominate it. Put some tires on it. That's that.
There was one of those electric Mustangs at the autocross I did last weekend. So I didn't actually get to see it because it was in the same group as me. But I think it's maybe a little tall for it, but they were having fun.
So Rob, walk us through it. So how did you come across autocross, and what made you want to do it?
The first time I did it was 10 years ago, and I think maybe you weren't there. It was like a BFG event where they took us down to which track in SoCal, I can't remember, but I got to do it in a brand new STI with an instructor next to me. So that was a really nice way to start. That's kind of unique. And then when me and you were in Vegas 2 weeks ago at the big muscle cars at the Strip, they had that big autocross thing. And for me, that was the most fun to watch because it was the best vibes anywhere. And that's one great thing about autocross is like nobody cares what you bring. The Porsche people are hanging out with the people who have the junkiest cars. It's very good vibes. And I was like, what's my excuse for not doing this? I
happened to have like a great car for it. I got that, came in 6 months ago, 2008 base model. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go home and find one. And I got lucky. There's one, no joke, 10 minutes from my house. So, and I was like, I'm going to bring my wife and we're going to have a good time. And we Googled it. I'm like, what do we need to bring? And basically the main things to bring are a car, water, sunscreen, and good shoes, because half of it's standing around in a parking lot, literally. So, and that was that we brought those things and we had a blast, you know.
So is that still part of it, Rob, where if you're at the autocross, part of attending an autocross is helping, like, you know, set up cones again and work the course a little bit?
Yeah, at least that's how, I think that's how the majority are still done. And it sounds more boring than it is, but it's actually fun. You get to meet a bunch of new people, very random mix of people, and you get to watch people drive just the most random stuff around the course. And then it's your turn to go drive. So the watching part is very educational. You kind of figure out where's a good place to hit the gas and where's a good place to hit the, brakes, and where to start a turn. And, so yeah, no, a big part of it is standing and watching. So have comfortable shoes, have some water, have some sunscreen, a hat, or I would have needed an umbrella because of course it was raining, which made it extra fun because sliding cars around in a wet parking lot. I mean, that's like, that goes back to high school, right? That's just fun.
Right.
I was going to say with any of these, you know, whatever you're interested in or whatever you want to do, that showing up and watching, that's probably one of the most important pieces, because you learn a lot by being there, but also that's where you're going to meet people. You know, you could, if you happen into the wrong forum or website on Autocross, you could think that you need to change your brake pads, and you need a separate set of tires and this specific set of tires, and you need, whatever, a new clutch. Like, you could spend thousands of dollars because someone who's really serious thinks that that's the way to go. Or you could show up at the Autocross and you can see the super serious person and you can see the person that just brought their daily, and you can talk to both of them, and they're probably going to be really friendly, and they definitely would love to help more people get into their hobby. And it's the best way to learn about what you need. And also, that ladder of how deep am I getting into this and how much am I going to spend time and money.
Literally all I did to prepare the car was wash it. Probably wasn't even necessary. Put gas in it, check the tire pressure, and check the oil. That's all I did. And I showed up. It was fine.
And I think that's a perfect example, that both examples that you gave, Mike, to yours. If you've ever thought about it, just go to find an autocross, go there and watch. Just simply go there and watch, and do not be afraid to ask anybody a question, because, everybody started somewhere. It's like going to the gym. Nobody went to the gym and all of a sudden popped out looking like Schwarzenegger. They went, they learned, they figured out how to do it. Autocross in any discipline is the same way. Ask the questions about, how to get around the course, what you should look for, how to particularly drive your cars. And every car is different, whether it's a front wheel drive, all wheel drive, rear wheel drive car, they all kind of behave differently. So it's okay to go up to people and ask them their thoughts. The more seasoned people that are out on the autocross will give you some great suggestions, but it's also fun to talk with the first timers, because you could compare notes about what kind of scares you about going to the autocross. Start talking in car terms and learning car terms about oversteer and understeer and threshold braking and things like that. But it is a very, very good, easy, and more importantly, inexpensive way to have fun on a Saturday or Sunday. Bring your family. Like Mike said, there's really not a lot out there to hit.
But the flip side of that is you are driving your car completely at the limit the entire time. It sounds weird. Like in our case, it's a small parking lot and you're literally in first gear, but you're going literally as fast as you can. And it shows you things about your car and your driving that you might not know, and you get to do it over and over and over again and work on things. So it's great. I mean, it's a lot of fun. So I'll be doing that probably this year. I'm excited.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. Most new cars, you have to realize that most new cars are far more capable than anyone thinks they are. And I don't mean that, if you go out and you buy a Porsche, yes, it's a very capable car, but I got news. That minivan you're driving is probably way more capable than you think it could ever be. The problem with most new cars is that you will never be able to experience their true capabilities on the street because, let's face it, it's kind of illegal and you don't want to go to jail. However, when you start going to places like the autocross, the drag strip, the racetrack,
it's a whole new ball game, and it's a whole nother world that you might never expect. So like, yes, autocross is one, and it's a great discipline that some people love. There's also drag racing. Now, drag racing is another way that you could get into autosport. And again, doesn't really cost you anything except maybe an entrance fee on a test and tune night. Mm-hmm. And to give you an example, like drag racing is it is the most American automotive discipline you can find is probably drag racing, right? Yeah, sure. In the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, drag racing was it for the United States, right? You've got NHRA that sanctioned all these races, but you also had drag strips all over the United States. The problem now is drag racing, because of real estate values, because of the noise, drag strips are becoming harder and harder to find, and they're also very expensive to maintain. However, if you have a local drag strip, or if you have a drag strip within, say, an hour or two drive, go to the drag strip's website, find out when they have test and tune nights. Now, a test and tune night is whereby anybody can take their car, you can go to the drag strip, and you can run it down the 1320. And 1320 is the length of a quarter mile, right? So you get to the racetrack, you line up, you go up, you find out what pre-staging is. When you see the big Christmas tree, when we talk about the Christmas tree, we talk about the lights at the drag strip that tell you to stop, stage, and go. And it's a great way to just kind of, for first timers, to experience speed if you have a normal car. Mm-hmm. So if you have a minivan per se, take it to the drag strip. Don't be embarrassed. Go to the light. When it turns green, put your foot to the floor. Mash it.
And the thing is, you're like, I'm going to show up in a minivan. First of all, I don't think anyone's going to give you a hard time. Again, people are generally pretty welcoming. But then, you're like, well, what? I have a minivan. Maybe it does 13s. I don't know how fast minivans are in the quarter.
Not 13.
They're pretty fast, 0 to 60. And, you're going to do one run, and then you're going to do another run, and the time's going to be different. And then all of a sudden, you start looking at all the minutiae, and that gets really exciting. I mean, if you took a minivan to the drag strip, I guarantee by the third run, you're finding a place to take all the seats and see how much take your time.
It's true.
That's a great point. The other point that Mike made earlier, which is fantastic, is you're only competing against yourself.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of people think a drag race, you're staging against somebody, and you're running against them. Is it sure to beat them to the line? Yeah, well, of course it is, but that's not why you're there. Right. On a test and tune night, like, to give you an example, I live near Sonoma Raceway, and every Wednesday night during the summer, yesterday they had it, is test and tune, where everybody goes. And you will see people there in Nissan Leafs. You will see people there in minivans. You will see people there in lifted pickup trucks. The other thing that's very cool is where we are, the police compete. So the police will show up in their Explorers and their Chargers, and they will run down the drag strip.
That's awesome.
And they will go around and they will talk to kids, and they will talk to adults and say, why are you here? Why, how do you like the drag strip? Why have you gotten into the sport? And it's fantastic. Now, on the flip side of that, you also see the pros. So you might see a wheel standing 1970 Camaro that'll run, a 9-second quarter mile. And if you've never experienced what that's like from a visual perspective as a spectator, it's pretty rad. Think about it. When was the last time you ever heard of a car pulling a wheelie? And then to experience it, it's fantastic. Now, EVs, if you have a Tesla, if you have any type of EV or hybrid, bring it to the strip, because they are ungodly quick. Yeah. And I think one of the things about the newer cars is they're so fast that people don't know. It's very difficult for them to experience that speed on the road. So to put yourself in a controlled setting that's safe with the EMTs, God forbid something goes out, it's just is a great thing, and it is fun for the whole family, and you could go and enjoy. And plus, it's inexpensive. I think it's $22 or $25 or whatever it is to get into Sonoma and drag. And then if you like it, you'll also progress. You could start doing some bracket racing. You could start doing other types of drag racing. But I think, going back to Mike's point, I know that one of the first times that I did it, I had a 1992 Chevrolet Caprice wagon, and we brought it to the drag strip on a goof. It ran 16.9, I think, or 17.1 or something like that. So slow as hell. But what we found is that we started doing exactly what Mike said. We're like, take the spare tire out, lower the tire pressures, doing that because maybe we could get down 1/10 or 2/10 of a second off our time. And we became really competitive in this slug of a station wagon. But my God, did we have a wonderful time. It was just, it was great. It was so much fun. So, Mike, have you drag raced? Rob, have you drag raced? And if so, what?
No, I've never actually drag raced. It was kind of embarrassing, honestly.
You know, the last time I was at a drag strip was actually a manufacturer event. It was a Taurus SHOs, the big ones, like the most recent.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've done it at a manufacturer event, but not.
I mean, but that was it. It was like, you know, there's 3 or 4 lanes of people waiting in line for their turn. It moves pretty quick, and
yep.
You know, you can stand around and chat with the people around you if you want. You can, you know, stare at your phone if you want. You can go out and watch what people brought. It's a pretty good time.
Should we talk about like helmets, insurance,
absolutely,
inspections? Because, for example, the autocross, there's somebody's inspecting every car before they let it in, right? And I needed to have a helmet with a certain rating, you know. And then people do have questions about insurance for these things. So, Mike, maybe you know a little more about those 3 than me.
Sure. So I think that's a very good point. I think that anytime you go to the racetrack, whether it's a drag strip or an autocross or a road course, your car, for the most part, will have to be inspected. Drag racing. So like here at Sonoma Raceway, you'll go up, you'll sign a waiver that basically says you give up your rights to everything. And if you throw your car into the wall, that sucks for you. And in the same token, you're going to be paying for the scratch that you made on the wall, right? It's just part and parcel. There is a risk involved. We don't want to make it sound like there's no risk involved in motorsports. But somebody will inspect your car. What they will do is generally they'll pop the hood. They'll make sure your battery is secure. They'll look for any objects in the car that could be flying around. They will check your tires to make sure there's actual tread on the tires. You know, and they basically just want to make sure that you as the driver are safe, right? Helmet, absolutely. There'll be a Snell, whatever rating under that helmet. And those are generally good for 4 to 5 years. So you want to make sure you have that. But this is why, to Mike's point, you kind of might want to go ahead of time and just observe. When you're there observing, ask questions. Ask the officials questions. That's what they're there for. They are there to educate you on how to get into this sport and do it safely. Now, for insurance, I'm going to tell you this right out. If you have track insurance, now track insurance doesn't incorporate drag racing if you wanted to. It's also there for road course stuff like HPDE's events, we'll get into in a few minutes. It is not cheap, but you have to think of it like this. If you go to the racetrack and you're driving something relatively slow, right? Say you're going and you're driving a minivan, for instance. You might run a 16-second quarter mile, right? It's really difficult to crash a minivan in a straight line. It just is. So like if you crash, you know, I would worry about somebody else crashing into you as opposed to you actually crashing because it's that difficult. If you have something that's worth some big money, if you have, you know, some kind of pro-built drag car, or say a new Hellcat or a new Mustang, a new something like that, you could crash those. You can get wheel spin at 60, 70, 80 miles an hour in those cars that could pitch you into a wall. If you have track insurance, you're covered. Now, is it cheap? Absolutely not. It can run you up to $500 an event. But if you bid it, well, your car's covered as opposed to not having it and then not covered. And I got news. This day and age, you are not getting away with jack or shit, because the fact of the matter is everyone has a camera. And as soon as somebody slams into a wall, every camera is going out there. And when you make that claim to your insurance company that you screwed up, the first place they go is your YouTube page, is to Instagram, is to everywhere else. And they're typing in your name, type it in the make, model, and year of your car, and they're looking for photographs. So, you know, the days of, I crashed on the track and I just threw it in the woods instead of deer ran out in front of me. Yeah, that's done, people. So you're not getting away with anything. So make sure that you have the proper insurance coverage. Also make sure, and this is the rule, that when you go to the track, and I don't care if it's an autocross, a drag strip, or a road course, you have to be ready to write that vehicle off. Have to be ready for that. If you're not, just be wary, because again, insurance doesn't play. You crash it, you bin it, that's it, right? Insurance is, it's not their responsibility to cover your stupidity if you screw up. So yeah, we covered a little bit of safety, right? We covered you always want to have the proper gear. Mike, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna say the other piece is a helmet, and if you're doing, you know, I would probably say anytime, but if you're doing, especially if you're doing road course stuff, you want an anti-whiplash device like Hans, and they make a.
Yep, we're gonna get into that right now.
But in both cases, you know, you're talking somewhere on the order of, you know, $1,000 and up to get your helmet and your anti-whiplash. And, that's depending on, depending on your budget, that's a lot of money, but it's like, that's the cost of entry. You have to do it. The good news is the helmet is good for at least 5 years. The anti-whiplash, they have like a 5-year certification, and you can get them recertified. They'll either test the straps or put new straps on them. So, it's not like you buy a new set of golf clubs and there's a new hot driver out the next year and you already want to replace it. You can keep it and have it for a while, but that is a cost of entry, and it is not one you should cheap out on.
No, and that's a great segue into hitting the old road course. Now, I've been doing road courses for, my God, almost 30 years, right? I started out on 2 wheels racing motorcycles, and I graduated into cars, and I, road course stuff is expensive. Now, there are different track organizations. If you are a beginner and you just want to get into it, there are track organizations like NASA, which is the National Autosport Association. There are track schools like Hooked on Driving, which is a school that you could call up. They have events all over the country, and you can go, and again, you bring your own vehicle to these events, and they start you off in whatever class you want. Like, so for instance, everybody's going to start you off in the beginner class. They're going to see if you actually have the acumen to drive on a racetrack, if you know how to handle a car. They do provide instruction to you. So an instructor will sit with you, right seat, tell you exactly what to do, and more importantly, what not to do. But there is a cost to this. And road course stuff is far more expensive than drag racing or autocross. Now, I'm going to predicate that by saying it's more expensive to get into at an amateur level. Drag racing, again, you can go on a Wednesday night or whenever your test and tune night is, have your helmet, and you could run down the track in a straight line. Fine. 3-5 runs, whatever you get, you're going to have a great time and enjoy it. Autocross, you can go on a Saturday morning. You're going to bring your helmet. You're going to get in the car. You do not have to have a fire suit. You're going to go and you're going to enjoy it. It'll cost you, Rob, what was the entry to your autocross?
$50.
$50. It's going to cost you $50 for the day. You're going to go, you're going to have a great time.
Yeah.
And each one of those disciplines, you're not really going to put that much wear and tear on your vehicle. Road course driving, that's another ball game, because the big thing is, like Mike said, and this is before you even turn the key, is safety. Okay. You cannot skimp on safety gear. When we talk about helmets, helmets will run you anywhere from $250 up. And by up, I mean, you could easily pay, $2,000 for a really good helmet. If you want a Hans device, which you really should have, or a neck brace device. So here's one. This is what a Hans device looks like, right? I just happen to have one. If you're watching this on the video, look at it. It goes behind your neck. You put it on. It straps to the sides of your helmets. And what this device does is, in the event of a crash, say you're coming down the straightaway, you pitch it into a turn, you lose traction, and you slam into a wall, right? Your helmet with these straps on the side is actually clipped in, and it prevents your neck from snapping forward or snapping to the side. And basically, it does keep you from having neck injuries. It is an invaluable piece of safety gear. It is not cheap. It is absolutely worth it. And if you're going to do this, I highly recommend you go buy one, because the worst thing you want to do is get injured.
And if you're listening, Mike's got the horseshoe collar type Hans that goes over a 4-point or 5-point racing strap. So it goes over the shoulder straps. There are companies that make ones that basically anchor to your torso, so you can wear it with a 3-point belt if you're just going to use your daily and you're not going to upgrade to a racing harness.
Correct. That's absolutely correct. Now things that you want to do when you go to a road course. Road course is my favorite discipline, and the reason is I like to get autocross, your first, second, third gear, maybe. Road course, you're really exploring the limits of your vehicle, as far as I'm concerned, right? Depending on the track length, you are going flat out. You can hit speeds over 160, 170 miles an hour depending on your car. It will test you it will test all your senses. It will test your reaction time. It will test your body and how well you react to G-forces. And it is an absolute hoot. However, the risk, in my opinion, is a little bit higher than other disciplines. I'm sure commenters out there will disagree with me. And the wear on your vehicle is more, right? So every time you're on a road course, your vehicle, say you have a 7,000 RPM red line, your vehicle is between 4,000 and 7,000 RPM the entire time. Okay. Not really a big deal, because most cars can handle that because they're new and they do what they have to do. But you will eat tires. You will eat brakes. You will eat suspension components. Now, if you're taking your daily driver out there,
you could pretty much take whatever you have for your first time going to the road course. The key is check your tires, check your oil, check your brakes. Okay. Tell whomever the organization is that you want to go out. This is your first introductory, class, and that you want to take it easy. Everybody wants you to succeed in whatever discipline you're doing. They will give you the correct instruction. One of the hardest thing to accept about going to something like a road course is how much money it's going to cost you in the long run, because I guarantee if you go, you will be hooked on it.
Yeah.
And you'll go, oh, this is going to hurt, because it is it is so much fun. It is so exciting. And now you're going to be thinking about, well, now should I upgrade the brakes? Should I upgrade this? Now should I upgrade that? When in reality, got to get a new car. In reality, what you should do is considering upgrading yourself and your skill level, right?
Yeah.
Everybody can become a better driver. The only thing it takes is seat time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say with the road course too, like some places do have test and tunes. So I live in Michigan. On the west side of the state, we have Gingerman. It's somewhere around, I haven't been in a couple of years. It's somewhere around $200, and they have it's in the afternoon, and they have a couple sessions, and they'll have a fast group and a slow group, and people with all kinds of cars show up, like people that are practicing for like a really serious SCCA race versus people that just have a track car and this is the only thing they do with it, versus people that are tuning their daily driver. It's a really good way to enter it. Again, they're the people that run the track will make sure you're safe, and they'll give you instructions to be safe. There's a lot on you too. You got to look at the track. If you whether you are an experienced driver or not, it's smart to leave a little bit of wiggle room. When you're
Yes,
a lot of wiggle room.
The other piece is, not to be a huge downer on costs, but if you show up in your road car to a road course, you're going to eat your tires pretty quick. You're going to eat your brakes pretty quick. You can manage it if you only do like one hard lap at a time, but it's like it's enough that you can show up to learn without having to buy a whole new set of tires. But if you do it on the regular, you're going to need, like Musto said, you're going to want more, and you're going to need to do some upgrades. But again, the good news is, even on the like toe dip part where you're like, okay, I'm going to get a set of track tires. Well, the track tires are going to last way, way longer than even the fanciest, grippiest road tires. So, you can spread the cost out a little bit.
The workaround here too, probably, and I don't know that much about this, is to just go to a driving school and drive somebody else's car, at least initially, right?
Absolutely.
You're probably going to learn a lot faster. Having an instructor next to you is amazing. I mean, and I've had the advantage of being able to do this as a quote unquote automotive journalist for years, but like, it's so fun. And then just not having to worry about the car at all. Somebody else's car is great, personally. Right. So look for that opportunity as well. If you have some concerns, whether it's about the vehicle insurance or whatever.
And you want to do the math. If you have a Mustang or a Porsche, you're in, what, $1,200 to $2,000 for a set of 4 tires. Like that's
right.
Exactly.
You can go to a track event and wreck a set of tires, or you could take a driving course for almost the same money.
Exactly.
Right. That's right. That's actually both you guys great points. I think, and you have things like Skip Barber, you have Bondurant, you have all these schools.
And those guys are all amazing.
They're fantastic. Yes, rent somebody else's car and sign the insurance waiver and say, okay, I'm ready to go. And here's the other part. Those cars are actually set up, right? They're set up with the right brakes, the right tires, the right seats, the right harnesses, the right everything. And they'll really let you experience it. But the instruction portion of it, I think, is one of the biggest things. I mean, yes. I've been an instructor for almost 20 years, and it is it's very fun. It's very fun. Sometimes you take your life in your hands when you have somebody in the left seat that you don't know, but it's also great to see the curve and see how people learn and see what they respond to. Everybody who thinks they're a great driver is probably not a great driver. I think, and that's something that I think people have to realize also. You have to go out and set expectations for yourself. Like I said, somebody who's been doing this for 20, 25 years or so, I consider myself a good driver. On a scale of 1 to 10, I consider myself a 5. Now, a lot of people go, that's BS. I consider myself a 9. Really? Because a 9 is like, you're a pro. right? You're a 10, you're like Schumacher
Yeah.
or Vettel or one of those guys. So you're probably not nearly as good as you. A 5 is like, I could go out, I could hold my own on a race course, and I'm not going to kill anybody, right? Don't pump yourself up. Understand that you probably suck out of the gate, and that's okay, because you always want to strive to get better, right? Sure. So aside from road course stuff, there's also a couple of others, right? Now, Rob and I don't know if Austin, you've attended, off-road rally is also a riot.
So fun.
Right.
And this
now,
again,
Mike,
do it with somebody else's car.
Do it with rally. Definitely do it with somebody else's car.
I have not done rally, although a similar thing that's big in any cold weather state is ice racing. And it's a similar thing where it's like,
sounds amazing.
I've never done that. So educate me, Mike, because that sounds amazing.
Okay, it's typically on frozen lakes. And
I want to do it.
I'm pretty sure it's like an oval course, but and then you can show up with you need to have a beater ready, because you're gonna hit a snowbank or you're gonna bump into someone else. But it's all low speed. I'm telling you, like, everyone I know that does it, like, I have a friend that used to race Spec Miata, and his eyes light up when he talks about ice racing. He's way more excited. His wife is like, you know, she's dipped her toe into kinds of racing, and she's like, no, ice racing's the best. And it's like, you're like, are you serious? Like, it's got to be cold enough for the lake to be frozen, and you're standing out in the cold all the time, and they're just like, no, it's the most fun, because you're slipping and sliding and you're fighting for grip, and it's just all about. It just goes back to like what Rob was saying in autocross. You're at the limit. It doesn't matter how fast you are. You're at the limit.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I think that's so much of it. The nice part about stuff like ice racing, we were going to talk a little bit also about rally racing, is that it's all about car control. Right. Mm-hmm. Like, so there's a school Rob and I have both attended a couple of times. It's called Dirtfish, and it's up in Snoqualmie, Washington.
Yep.
And it's one of many rally schools in the United States. But basically, it's, if you've ever watched rally, right, like European rally, you are sliding through the woods at full lock at 7,000 RPM in somebody else's car, and my God, is it fun! You're
basically driving on marbles. I mean, basically,
that's what it feels like, right? Yeah. And you're not going that fast, right? So like, even at Dirtfish, like, we did the advanced school, I think we shifted into third gear like 3 or 4 times. You're at the top of second at 7,000 RPM. The tires are screaming. But what it does, and more importantly, what the instructors at an organization like that do, is they teach you car control. They teach you things like left foot braking. They teach you what to do in the event of a slide. They teach you threshold braking. There are all these different things that rally teaches you that you can apply to everyday driving. And when I say everyday driving, it more applies to driving in inclement weather, like snow, like rain, like sleet, and stuff like that. But oh my God, is it fun?
It's so fun. You're in like but their main car is like a pretty stock STI, but it's been caged, and then it's got different suspension and different wheels, but otherwise relatively. And then I think they have a rear wheel drive option now too, right? You can do.
They do. They have BRZs.
BRZs. Yeah. So those are the vehicles. I don't know how long those things last, the way they get the snot kicked out of them, but it's super cool. It's super cool.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. Now, rally driving, especially if you go to a rally school, there's a cost to that too. Don't expect to go to a rally school and not spend at least $600-700. It's expensive.
At least, yeah.
But I will tell you, it is fun. It is so much fun to do. And again, there are other events that you could do, like the 24 Hours of Lemons, which is, it used to be you'd buy a $500 car and go to the track. Now that's impossible to do because cars are just not $500. But, you know, there's also Chump Car and Champ Car and all these different organizations that you can run. The cool part is, with racing and with doing kind of amateur events, it is one, I love the absolute social aspect of it. I have friends at the track that I only see at the track, and that's totally okay, because that's what we love to do. And it's great to get there and converse with them and talk about what modifications they've done to their vehicle, if they're downgrading, upgrading, whatever the case is. We talk about new safety equipment. We talk about, you know, like road course. One of the things that we didn't hit on, aside from like a Hans device or a neck brace device, is a suit, right? Is a fire suit, is fireproof shoes and driving thing and stuff like that, and gloves, because that is all stuff that, you know, you might say, well, it's really expensive. And I'll tell you flat out, I probably have over $2,000 just in driving gear. The way that I look at it is, if I hit a wall and my car bursts into flames, I'd like to leave it without, and I'd like to have my skin intact. So is it worth it for me to spend that money? It absolutely is. I truly recommend you form that same opinion if you start to advance.
Well, and also, I mean, just like, there's plenty of hobbies that are inexpensive. You can get into running, you can get into kayaking, you can get into
kayaking.
No question.
Little money, but there's a bunch of other. But the thing is, I was like, oh, racing's expensive. Well, look at golf, which is, I think,
oh God,
millions of people do it. You're paying greens fee, you're paying carts fee. If you belong to a club, you're paying a club fee. You're paying, the clubs themselves. Even if you don't change your clubs, those are expensive, and so. It just depends on what you're comparing it against. Like, yes, doing stuff in a car is expensive. There's plenty of other, don't let anyone shame you on, wasting money or spending money. Like, the money goes for good reasons, like safety gear. And if you enjoy it, you do your own math on whether it's worth the time.
And, you don't have to go do all these expensive ones. You could just do autocross and drag racing and probably honestly, like,
well, and they also have rallycross, which is autocross,
exactly,
the rally car. And again,
absolutely.
You're not crashing into anyone else. You're just crashing into the ditch.
Right. No, I
get a cheap car for that one.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, if you are worried about throwing your car, I think the first step is what Rob said. Take a school, right? You can go to an autocross, you can take an autocross school, you can take a rally school, you can take a road course school. There are organizations all over the country that you can research and then choose your own and try it. Who knows? You might get there and go, you know what, this isn't for me. And that's totally okay. But don't deny yourself the pleasure of driving it, because the fact that or trying it, because it is one of the most fun things that I think you could ever do behind the wheel of a vehicle. If you find the one you like, if it's autocross, if it's autocross, if it's HPDE and track day stuff, then that's great. But it is fun. It can be and should be, I think, a very fun family endeavor to do. Is it going to cost you money? Yes. To Mike's point, everything costs money these days. You're not getting around that. Do you guys have a favorite discipline that you like, that you've done, or is there something that you would like to try that you haven't done so far?
I mean, road course for me is my favorite. I'm just scared of it getting into it because of the cost, honestly. And I know, like, I'm going to go get another mortgage on the house to do it the way I'd want to, So I'm just going to focus on autocross this year and my own skills. I love dirtfish though, or the rally stuff.
Yep.
So I'll probably stick to autocross and then driving other people's cars in schools and stuff for a while. And that's fine with me.
I love lemons. It's what I've spent the most time in.
You got to talk about lemons.
You're a lemons.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah, you're a lemons guy.
Yeah, let's hear about that. If you don't know,
24 Hours of Lemons is the racing series for $500 cars. And essentially, yes,
$500 cars, quote unquote.
Essentially, yes, the car has to cost $500 or just be so terrible that the judges will give you a pass. You can sell some parts off the car, to get down to $500, but you're supposed to show up in junk. And in reality, you have to put a cage in it. You're going to want to buy wheels and tires. It's around $3,000 to $4,000 to build a car from scratch.
But you're doing this also with a team, right? It's not.
You're doing it with a team, and ideally, it's going to last a few races. My last Lemons car did not. We blew 2 engines in the course of probably 3 total hours of lap time. But so
nice.
the car might last. You're doing it with a group of people. There are also race fees associated. You also have to get all your safety gear. So the thing with Lemons is it works if you can amortize it. And the other great thing about Lemons is it's an endurance race. So you have 4 or 5 drivers. Most of the races are just 2 daytime sessions. It's not overnight. But even so, you're getting 2 to 4 hours of track time in a weekend. There's almost no cheaper way to get that much time on track. And you can learn things and find out. And then, to me, the whole fun, probably every 3 months, the text message string goes back up. I'm like, oh, hey, the kids are getting older. I might have time to race again. Or I have a friend who's like, yeah, my 17-year-old kid just wrecked the Matrix, so it might be a Lemons car. The appeal to me is, everyone, I talk about Lemons cars. They're like, oh, you want to get an E30? And I'm like, no, I don't want an E30. I want something that's going to show up and be rated in Class C.
Yeah.
And
right.
And people are going to look at it and laugh at it, and you're going to just wring the neck of the car for 2 hours. That's the beauty of Lemons. Is it's a bunch of fun. People are really friendly. They love to help out. And it is like, once you get into it, it's one of the best values for seat time.
Yeah.
And Rob's talking about a mortgage. I would say, like, one other piece of it of racing advice is, Lemons, you're going to need to be able to wrench it yourself, because you do not want to pay to fix.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but, you do need some wrenching skills.
But there's, even with Lemons and with any other series, people sell race cars all the time.
Sure.
And if you really want to go in with 2 feet, or you're thinking about it, or you've done a bunch of high performance driving events, you've done a bunch of racing schools, and you're like, man, I got to get a new Corvette, or I got to get a new BMW. No, you don't. You get like a used track or race car for $10,000 will be way more fun.
Yeah.
Like in a dedicated track setting than at least like a fun to stress ratio than a new Corvette.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's very, very true.
Part of the fun, especially with the road course, is cornering. And cornering is dictated by horsepower only, in as much as you got to get up to a certain speed to corner at a certain speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
the rest is chassis and tires.
Yeah, and you can go down a rabbit hole. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. I've been down this rabbit hole, and it has cost me thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars. So back in 2013, I built a Mustang GT. And all of a sudden, I found myself putting a cage in it. This is a brand new car, putting a cage in it. And then I spent X amount of dollars on a full race suspension with coilovers. And then I spent thousands of dollars on wheels and tires. And then I spent thousands of dollars on brakes. Before I knew it, I was basically in the Rob school, where I almost took out a second mortgage on this car. And I was like, oh, dear God, what have I done? Right. So I had this amazing street car that was fully capable as a track car. That was fun with minor upgrades. And I built it into this flat out spec Mustang that was an animal on the track, but was just a rough bucket on the street.
Yeah.
And I was lucky. I was lucky to get out of it what I had into it when I sold it. But I was like, you know what? I'm not doing that again, because it's simply too expensive. And there are other things that if you have the extra income and you could do it, that's fine. Do not ever modify your daily driver into a full-on track machine, because you will regret it. Buy something, like Mike said, afterwards, if you feel like you're going to keep going forward with it and go down that road. It's much easier on the wallet.
It's the same with off-roading. It's like, you could buy a new
we haven't even
Sasquatch package, or
we haven't even touched on off-roading.
You could get a used Jeep, at a tenth the price, that will go all in the same places.
Yeah, that's so. Should we touch on off-roading? I have limited off-road experience. I don't know if you guys have more, but I have limited.
No.
No, I would just say the same wisdom applies. Like, show up, ride along, learn. You don't have to spend a bunch of money to enjoy it. There are, there are smarter entry points, and the main thing is, you can have a lot of fun at the lower entry points.
Yes.
I think that is a words of wisdom for Mike Austin, and I think that's where we're going to end out today, because I think that's the kind of the perfect closing. Like, use your head. Don't spend a lot of money. Have a great time and get involved in motorsport. With that being said, Rob and Mike, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking about how to get into the disciplines that we all love. Obviously, this is the Hemmings Hot Rod BBQ Podcast. If you are looking for that specific car that you might want to go to the Autocross drag strip road course in, we're Hemmings. We have the largest classified section on the planet, with 25 to 30,000 cars online. We also have one killer auction. So if you're buying a car, look at our auction. If you're selling a car, look at our auction. We can help you with that. Otherwise, if you have questions for us, post them in the comments section, either on Hemmings.com or on our YouTube channel, and we will get back to you with educated answers. How's that? Does that sound good? Great. With that, thanks for tuning into the barbecue, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod BBQ Podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod BBQ Podcast and hit that subscribe button, and we'll come to you every week.